Well, with more than 25 years of experience, Salomon Konig has gained some perspective on the at times volatile hedge fund industry. As principal of GP Asset Management, Konig oversees around $900 million in fund-of-fund investments and in fund families. He's also director of the Hedge Fund Association, a not-for-profit group that seeks to increase awareness of the hedge fund industry. He joins me now live from Miami, Florida to talk more. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you for having me.
Salomon, let's talk first about what Melissa just described, where the principal risks are in the hedge fund industry and how one gets to know the money manager handling one's funds. How do you do diligence on an investment vehicle where sometimes you don't get the type of transparency you might get elsewhere?
Well, I would say that for individual investors, investing in hedge funds, it's going to be a very dangerous game. I think that for individual investors, the only way to do it is through funds of funds.
But you run a fund of funds, so it's probably
No. We have seeded 2 funds of funds, but
okay.
What we do is we advise families on fund of funds.
Now, let me ask you about this process, because it's assumed that when someone gets involved in a fund of funds type operation, that they're buying a diversified basket of hedge funds that presumably aren't invested in the same thing at the same time, that they are not correlated. And that could be true up to a point, unless they're all making a bet on stocks, commodities, and bonds being leveraged to, let's say, low interest rates. How do you determine whether or not your basket of funds are, is correlated or isn't correlated to any one thing?
It's, first of all, it's not your job to know that. It's your fund of funds manager to know that it's well constructed and that it's well put together and that it has, for real, a low or even better, a negative correlation. So, but that would not be your job to do. You could find out about the fund of fund managers and their background. Do some due diligence on the fund of funds. But that would not be your job to do.
All right, now what's the best way to go about putting together a fund of funds or picking a fund manager? Where do you get the type of information that will give you a pretty accurate performance picture of the managers that you're looking at?
Okay, now we got, there's many firms that will give you a database well researched into the fund of funds. They're a little expensive, and that's why even that might not be viable for the individual investor. But if he was willing to do it, or if it was a club, an investment club, and they were willing to spend the money, HFR, for example, is a very good group that has tremendous information. And there's others. There's Tremont, there's S&P now, there's many of them.
Right. Now, what about the double dipping, essentially, that is an issue with hedge funds? They get paid a % of assets under management and a performance fee, and so do the underlying hedge fund investments. It gets pretty expensive, doesn't it, to get involved in a fund of funds operation?
On the double dipping, when the industry began 25 to 30 years ago, people said that the high fees that the managers, the hedge fund managers, would charge would never allow this industry to grow. What happens is that they have brought their performance besides their fees. The fund of funds are doing the same thing, some of them.
Lately, though, the performance hasn't been that great, has it?
No, and I believe that the next 5 years are going to be even worse.
All right, I'm afraid I have to leave it on that note because we're out of time. But Salomon, thanks for being with us. We appreciate you joining us today. Salomon Konig of GP Asset Management.